This is the ECS LIVA. Now, it's sort of the Nook, the next unit of computing. It's a tiny little fanless computer that just may be your next buy.
ECS made a moderate splash last year with the introduction of the LIVA series of PCs, a next unit of computing-sized Bay Trail-powered box that offered Windows-capable power in a hand-sized, silent, sub-$200 package.
It will run desktop applications. It will run your standard Windows programs as long as you're comfortable with what the performance level will be. For example, HD playback, video playback, right? It will run 1080p in HTML5, but it doesn't run 1080p in Flash very well. It runs 1080p playback on MKV files as well.
This is a machine for Bejeweled if ever there was one.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Sebastian for also pointing out that this could be a net top PC. And when I hear that, we're talking about, home theater PC streamer. We're talking about basic desktop functionality, because the vast majority of things we do on our computers these days in offices for most people do not require a smidge of the power that's available in like a Core i5, much less a Core i7 processor.
Sure.
The LIVA X2 is the latest version of ECS's mini PC system. And though it's updated, ECS managed to keep the price point at $170 for our 2 gig, 32 gig version, with a 4 gig, 64 gig version available for $240. From the start, it's obvious that ECS put a bit more effort into the design of the X2 than the original LIVA. Gone is the boxy shape and set-top black in favor of the pure white 6 inches by 3¼ inches by 2 inches, 2.4-pound digital pill package. Of course, real techies care more about performance and function than aesthetics, and ECS worked on that too. The X2 has 3 USB 3.0 ports in the front, with one of them being an easy charge port that will fast charge USB devices even if the unit is off. To the rear of the unit, you'll find a D-sub connector, combo audio jack, gigabit Ethernet, HDMI, and the power port. ECS also includes a mounting plate that will adapt the X2 to a VESA stand. Inside the X2, an enormous heatsink and heat pipe take up the bottom third of the case, directly cooling the CPU and memory parts, negating the need for a fan. ECS ditched the Bay Trail system on a chip and opted instead for the 14nm Intel Braswell N3050 SoC, a Celeron dual-core running at 1.62.1 GHz with 1 MB of L2 cache. Soldered to the board is 2 GB of system memory and 32 GB of Toshiba eMMC flash storage. There are 2 M.2 slots on the board. The topside slot is filled with a dual-band 2230 802.11 AC card, while the M.2 slot on the underside of the board can be populated with a 2241 or 2280 SSD. Pre-installed is Windows 8.1, which is eligible for a Windows 10 upgrade, though without an SSD upgrade in the M.2 slot, you'll need to follow ECS's instructions on downloading and clearing space to make it all fit. Performance is okay. Not great, but about what you would expect from a fanless unit, and more than enough for typical web work.
Now, of course, this is not a speed demon. That's not what you buy it for. So if you're looking to do intensive gaming, first-person shooting, or even if you want to do like minimal video editing, this is not the package for you. But what it does do really well is to give you a silent. There are no moving parts, no hard drives, no fans, no nothing in this. This is purely for that little box that's going to get tucked away, maybe mounted behind a monitor, which is why they give you the VESA mount. And at that job, it excels. Now let's go ahead and look at the pros and the cons. On the pro side, it's small and light, and I actually like the design. A lot of people don't like this pill. They kind of like the old net top, set top look that the original LIVA had. I like this. It does feel nice. It feels solid, which makes me feel, it's a bit more quality. Also, we've seen inside of it, and we know exactly how packed it is, so they've made use of all the space. It's perfect for hidden applications. If you want a PC that you could hide away behind a TV and it'll run Netflix, it will run YouTube, it will run Amazon Prime, it'll run all those things, this is actually a really good option. Also, low heat means low power. This thing is going to pull a total of about 8 watts, maybe even less. That's really if you're pushing it. So this is an incredibly economical way to get a decent amount of computing power. Also, since it's quiet, it means that you're going to be able to use it for applications where you don't want any extra noise. Again, not a whole lot of power, but with this much competency, and remember, it comes with Windows 8, upgradable to Windows 10. So for $170, that's actually a really good deal. On the con side, there are a couple of interesting design changes that they made that I wouldn't have. First, these USB ports in the front, great. I like having USB ports, but there are none in the back, which means to use this as a PC, I have to have cables coming from both sides of the unit. That just makes it messy. I wish they had put in at least one in the back, just one, so that I could have everything running out of the back and give it a nice, clean look. The other thing is the soldered system memory and storage. Yeah, you can use the M.2 slot to upgrade with an SSD. That's going to add to the expense. But you can't upgrade the system memory. Unless you buy the 4 gigabyte, 64 gigabyte version, you're stuck with 2 gigabytes. It works fine for most applications, but when I compare this to something like the actual Intel NUC, the one that kicked off this whole size format, that's going to be comparable in price, but far more expandable. In fact, I can get a NUC with 4 gigabytes of memory and a really inexpensive SATA drive for just a tiny bit more than the LIVA. That being said, the question is, does this provide something that all of the other competitors can't? Or does it provide it at a price point that's better than all the other competitors? And for that, I say, yeah, it actually does. It may not be the fastest net top on the market. It may not be the most compact net top on the market. It's definitely not the most powerful or the most expandable net top, but it does what it does incredibly well at this price point. I probably wouldn't go for the 4 gigabyte, 64 gigabyte version, but the 2 gigabyte, 32 gigabyte version with this M.2 expandability, with the feature set that's built in for $170 or so, yeah, I think that's an absolute buy.